Article number Article number 131. It talks about original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. What do you mean by jurisdiction? Jurisdiction basically means that what kind of disputes can Supreme Court adjudicate? That's what it means. It can't, like, there are only certain things on which Supreme Court can give its judgment. So this talks about the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, like what all disputes can Supreme Court look into. That's what it talks about. It says, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the Supreme Court shall, to the exclusion of any other court, have original jurisdiction in any dispute listed below. Basically, it says Supreme Court shall, to the exclusion of any other court. It means that only Supreme Court has jurisdiction over the listed items here. No other court has any jurisdiction over these items. And it also says subject to the provisions of this Constitution. This means, like, this might not be the only things on which Supreme Court can give its judgment, like certain things like violation of fundamental rights and those things, like even Supreme Court can look into those things, but those things have to be mentioned in this Constitution. That's what it means, subject to the provisions of this Constitution. But these things fall under original jurisdiction. And what are those items? A says between the government of India and one or more states. Like, for example, when you say government of India, that means the central government. Like, let's say if there is any dispute between central government and state of Uttar Pradesh, and in that case, Supreme Court alone can give its judgment. No other court can do that. This is the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. That's what it means. B, between the government of India and any state or states on one side and one or more other states on the other. Basically, this means that on one side we can have the central government and state of Uttar Pradesh, and on the other side we can have the state of Madhya Pradesh. So if there is any dispute between them, even in that case, Supreme Court can give its decision. Third, between two or more states. That means if there is any dispute between two states, like if there is any dispute between Jharkhand and Bihar, in that case, Supreme Court can give judgment on that dispute. Or there can be any dispute between three states, like for example, there could be a dispute between West Bengal, Jharkhand and Odisha. Even in those cases, Supreme Court can give its judgment. Even that falls under the original jurisdiction of Supreme Court. But there is a provision for this article, which is like this: provided that the said jurisdiction shall not extend to a dispute arising out of any treaty, agreement, covenant, engagement, sanad, or other similar instrument, which, having been entered into or executed before the commencement of this Constitution, continues in operation after such commencement, or which provides that the said jurisdiction shall not extend to such a dispute. Basically, what it means that, see, we all know that on Jan 26, 1950, our constitution our constitution commenced. It means that if there was any agreement between any two parties, let's say there was any agreement between uh, like some state A and state B on 1949, and there was some dispute that came out of that agreement in 1952, then Supreme Court has no jurisdiction on that, because that particular agreement was signed in 1949. That's what it means. And it also says, if and this particular thing says that, like, let's say any agreement was written in 1970, between two states A and B, and in the agreement itself it was written that Supreme Court will not have its jurisdiction over this agreement. That means if there is any dispute which comes out of this agreement because of this agreement in later point, then Supreme Court has no jurisdiction over that. And if this particular thing is written in that agreement itself, then Supreme Court cannot adjudicate any such dispute. That's what it means. But there is something else. Article 143. It says that in Article 143, President can refer any such dispute to the Supreme Court. That means though Supreme Court has no original jurisdiction over such disputes, but President can, if the President wants it, then Supreme Court can take up such cases. That we will see in detail in article number 143 video.